Namaste. Let's go live on another bicycle live stream at 7:09 a.m. on Saturday, July the 17th. Starting to warm up a little bit, 16 degrees. Beautiful morning, absolutely beautiful winter's morning. Been on the bike for an hour and a half, done a bit over 23 kilometres, down at Tweed at the moment. And this morning's topic is a very localised topic, pertinent to the Gold Coast, but it can be applied to other areas. And it's called How to Stop a Tram in Its Tracks. And specifically, what I'm focusing on this morning is talking about the light rail, stage 4 of the light rail, which is due to go from Burleigh down to Coolangatta Airport, and has caused a lot of controversy because of the proposals of how this light rail is going to be integrated into the existing area. And people that have had a look at those of us that have had a look at the maps and the videos and that have just looked at it and gone, well, this is ridiculous. So, and we're trying to work out why the government is so hell-bent on putting through something that's going to cause environmental destruction, it's going to cause traffic issues, it's going to cause issues with people's health as well. So, just want to start off with a little bit of history for those of us that may remember. If you've been on the coast a long time, I came here in 1970. You may recall that the history of the coast is we used to have heavy rail that went from Brisbane down to Tweed. And in the 60s, if I remember correctly, in 64, the government decided in its infinite wisdom to stop this train and a few years later tear up the tracks. Where that rail used to travel is actually the path of the M1 these days. So if you want to know where it went, just drive along the M1 and you've got the idea. But the question was, why did they remove a well-frequented travel system, transportation system? And history has shown that the reason why they did was because of, guess what, vested interests. So it turns out that one of the politicians back in the 60s, whose name escapes me, but you can Google it, had interests in vehicular transportation, a trucking company basically for transporting freight. And he was able to convince his mates in the government that the rail was no longer needed. Now, no doubt he possibly did this by using statistics and, you know, all these different things that organisations and governments come up with to push their agenda, to say, look, the stats show that it's not being frequented enough to be worthwhile, it's not being used enough, therefore we need to get rid of it. That sort of thing. So it turned out that by removing the rail, this politician, his business, then was able to take over the freight that was going on the rail and be able to freight it with his trucking company. So that's history now, but a really good example to apply to what is happening in current time with the light rail. When we start asking ourselves, why is the government hell-bent on putting this light rail in, we need to follow the money trail. And Looks like I'm following a trail of cars at the moment. But before we follow the money trail, let's just talk about why this light rail is so insane. Now, I've lived on the Gold Coast since 1970 when I first moved into Palm Beach, lived there for 12 years, and then I moved up into Surface, lived there for a couple of years, and then in 85 I moved back down the southern end of the coast to Currumbin Valley and have lived there ever since, so 36 years in Currumbin Valley. So I have seen the coast go from a time when it only had one set of traffic lights that I knew of, when it was so quiet on the highway in Palm Beach at 8 o'clock at night, this is in the 80s, that as a bit of a prank, I lay down one night at 8 o'clock at night in the middle of the highway because no cars would be coming. That's, it's gone from that to the situation we have today. The situation we have today, for anyone who lives at the southern end of the coast, is well aware that anywhere from Burleigh down is that you cannot get on any good day, most days, during the week or the weekend, you cannot get near the beach from Burleigh down. You can't park near the beach. You can't access the local shops and that very easily. It's just a struggle to get anywhere near it. And the same thing, that's at Burleigh is just ridiculous. The same thing happens at Currumbin. Any time from 5 a.m. onwards at Currumbin Alley, the car park will be full at 5 a.m. And you're just going, what? This is ridiculous. And you'll end up in a long line of cars by 7 or 8 a.m. that stop traffic. Last Christmas, the traffic was stopped trying to go to the beach at Currumbin Alley. And I would take my dad down there. Sorry about the vibration. I'm on a very bumpy footpath at the moment. Has a special sort of surface on it. It'll stop vibrating in a minute. Morning. And bear with me a little bit longer. Here we go. And there we go. So, any last Christmas taking father down to Currumbin Alley, we just sat in a line of traffic and we sat and that's the worst I've seen it yet. This last Christmas gone. It's just getting worse and worse all the time as more people move to the coast. So it's a finite resource that we have, a finite amount of space, but an increasing number of people trying to use that finite amount of space. Morning. So that creates a problem, obviously. Also, in the last couple of years, the traffic going through the highway at Palm Beach, the current highway at Palm Beach, which has 2 lanes in each direction, has gotten to the point where it's often stopped or moving very slowly and quite a lot of traffic. So that's the current situation. Now you go, okay, that's the current situation. How will the light rail improve it? Well, what they want to do is reduce an already congested 4-lane Gold Coast highway at Palm Beach down to just 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. And you go, hang on a second, that's nuts. I'm sorry, I'm on another bumpy bridge. Oh boy. And you just go, well, that's crazy. What's the logic in that? Well, there is no logic in that until you start following the money. And the same thing occurs with when you look at the practicality of using the light rail. It's like, okay, I want to use the light rail. So already I'm going to be in a situation where I have to get close enough to it. Now, assuming the weather's fine, for starters. If it's raining, this is another problem. So I have to be able to get close enough to it to be able to use it. So I either have to live in the path of the light rail, which is how trams work in places like Melbourne, where the city was designed for it, with the trams in a concentric circle, where you can easily access the tram on foot. The Gold Coast is long and thin. It's not designed for trams. You have a single tram line running along the highway, you've got a situation of like, okay, I've got to get to that tram. How am I going to get to it? Well, I can walk to it. I could catch a bus to it. See, there's an irony there. Or I could drive to it. If I drive to it, where do I park? Because they are not provisioning parking areas for these trams. So we have another problem. We have nowhere to park. We already have an existing problem with parking and with traffic, and just watching for cars here. And so this just makes the situation worse. So then, just got a lot of obstacles here this morning, I tell you. So I've got the next thing is, okay, from a practical point of view, you can't park near it to use it. It only goes along the highway. If you say, oh, well, I want to go to the Pine Shops where buses currently go, you can't go there. I want to go to Stocklands. I want to go to any area that you would normally go to, which would be a shopping centre. Because of its inability to go anywhere other than the single track that it's running on, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. You're like, so all I can do is go along the highway. So it is completely impractical. The government wants to resume properties to put in power to run it, power substations to run it, and to provide room for it. Wants to reduce the traffic flow, or wants to reduce the amenities for the traffic to flow on down to single lane each way. And you just stop and you go, how in any way can this be an improvement on the current situation? So I'm not advocating that cars are the solution either. However, in Burleigh Heads, where they want stage 4 to start, is a local company. I think it's called Bus Tech. I only discovered it last night. And guess what they make? Electric buses. They are supplying electric buses to Tasmania, if I remember correctly. And so we have within our zone a company that can provide a vehicle that is not restricted to a track, a single track, that can drive to pick up passengers from different bus stops, like the existing system, that can go to the different shops. This is a sensible solution. It helps take people away from cars, and it gives an ability for people to go to the places they want to go, and it's environmentally friendly, or more environmentally friendly than cars and the tram would be. Now, it's interesting to note that for the tram to be successful, the existing tram to be successful at the northern end of the coast, they had to stop the buses. So the people were forced to use the tram. Now, all of this I'm talking about, as Helen says, again, it's all about the dollars, like everything. Sounds like here. Okay, your comment's a bit long there, Helen. I'll stop up here and read it. I need to focus on it. I'll just get up the top of this hill. So, the existing tram, just look at what they have of the existing trams at the northern end of the coast. They hardly have any occupancy people using them. They're, as I say, they've had to remove the buses to force people to use them. And again, what happens when it's a wet, what happens when we have a week's worth of rain and people are forced to try and get to these trams, and they are in a situation where they're going to get really wet. It's just not practical. So Helen says, like everything, it's about the dollars. Like everything is ridiculously sad. Sounds like more car parking would be a better idea. They could make car parks separated by Australian native shrub trees. The birds could enjoy the flowers on the shrubs then too. That's cool. See, that's good. Thinking of nature. I like it. Instead of a tramway, which causes environmental destruction and traffic problems. So, why are they hell-bent on doing it? Well, can we say out loud, vested interests? Apparently. Now, again, I don't know the validity. I haven't done a lot of, and I'm going to put this in quotation marks, research on this. So I'm only going on the written hearsay that says that Tom Tate, our mayor, and mayor is probably too strong a word to describe him, the guy who somehow ended up in power again in our local council, apparently he has connections with, I read, 8 different companies involved with the construction and the running of these trams. So maybe that number is correct, maybe it's not, but it wouldn't surprise me. But the other thing that came across was that there's been said that it allows, by putting the tramway through down the highway, it changes the zoning of the area, and of course you change the zoning, that allows a higher density development in the area, which of course is going to be something that our mayor is going to push for, because his mates his business mates that he drinks with, they're going to love it. They're like, oh great, we can go for high rises, we can go for bigger densities, or not sure what the terminology is, but where you put more units in the same space, we can basically make more money. So it's follow the dollars again. It's gone from, okay, apparently I've reconnected due to poor wireless connection. Okay, so Tate, or Tart, has gone from, when he was campaigning for mayor, he was campaigning on a platform of not having light rail. So he's completely swung 180 to supporting it. And of course, you only have to get close to him and you can smell the money and other things. So a big shout out to Karen Rolls, who is doing great work in posting on social media and also organising protests in person, and who has been digging up information about the trams and the vested interest behind them, and all the other people that are working behind the scenes doing that. So check out the forums. Stopping light rail on the Gold Coast is one of Karen's groups, and I think she's got at least another one. So check out these groups. If I can, I'll link to them later. And if you're on the Gold Coast, just be aware that the overdevelopment, if this light rail goes through at the southern end, is going to get proportionately worse than it currently is. And already, if you live at the southern end of the Gold Coast, you'll have seen the ridiculous high rises that they're allowing now, and the crazy amount of traffic. I'm very fortunate to live in Crumman Valley to be able to avoid it, but if I still lived in the street that I grew up in Palm Beach, I'd just be, it wouldn't be a great existence. So thank you. I rambled on quite lengthily here. More sleep would have been helpful. But anyway, live vegan and save lives, and I'll speak to you soon. Ahimsa.